The topic today is intra-abdominal pressure, bracing your core, breathing, whatever you want to call it. Because currently I'm writing this section in my book, and I didn't really touch on it as in depth as I should in my first book. And I always feel bad when I start writing a section of my book that kind of expands on my previous one, and I'm like, fuck, why did I talk about this? Why didn't I give more at the time? But again, grow up, because I still feel like I'm 16 years old in high school. We learn more and we can give more to the world, so that's the situation. But breathing is so important, obviously, because if we don't breathe, we die. But when it comes to exercise, it is so vital to, one, for performance, but two, for creating like a safety net around our body, especially our spine. So when you look at a sport like powerlifting, they, in my opinion, have one of the best bracing strategies for their spines to ensure that when they lift 800 pounds off the ground in a deadlift, their spines don't explode and shoot out onto the gym floor. When I am in the clinic and I have a patient in front of me that is needed to learn how to properly create a diaphragmatic breath, I first assess them. And 9 out of 10 times, they breathe with their chest. All of us fall into this pattern. Our lives are dealt with so much stress, and we end up becoming chest breathers. And then our traps and our scalenes and all these muscles around our neck and shoulders end up becoming hypertonic, and they get super tight, and we can't do anything about it, no matter how much massage you get, how much Theragun bullshit you do to yourself. They just are overactive. And then you sit in a desk all day or in a car like I am right now, and again, you're stressed, you're clenching, you're breathing with your chest, and your diaphragm doesn't move. And just like anything, if you don't use it, you lose it. I say this all the time. Imagine, because again, your diaphragm is a muscle, right? If you don't use a muscle for a long time, it loses its ability to function the way it should. It doesn't go to sleep, or it's not activating, or whatever that bullshit that you hear. It simply means it goes into a state of atrophy, it's weaker, and it doesn't fire or function the way it should. So imagine if you never did bicep curls or never bent your elbow for like 6 months. It would be awkward and weird, and you would almost like forget how to like move your arm into a bicep position. So just like your diaphragm. When I'm in the clinic and I'm asking people to breathe through their belly, it's almost like their mind can't connect to their diaphragm, and there's this weird disconnect. There's things where I'll get people like, okay, well, place one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest, and try to breathe into the bottom hand. And even then, like, their breathing pattern's kind of off. They can't really figure out how to make that connection. So then the next layer is like, okay, I want you to place your hands at the bottom of your rib cage and place it at the bottom of that rib cage. The front of your fingers are going to be at the front of your belly. The little like crease between your index finger and your thumb is going to be surrounding kind of where your obliques are. And then your thumb is going to be pushed into the back of your back, kind of like where your kidneys sit. And every inhale, you should be able to fill your entire grip. And ideally, you should be able to fill that chokehold. And a lot of times people have a lot of trouble. They still kind of breathe into their chest. So I'm like, okay, every exhale, as you breathe in and exhale, everything kind of collapses. And I tell people in that chokehold position, push against your waist. And then every inhale and exhale, every single time you exhale, you want to push a little bit further. And it kind of comes down to this concept. If I went over through this freaking video and try to push you over, your natural instinct is to resist against me, right? So if I'm pushing against my diaphragm, the natural instinct for my diaphragm is to push against my hands. Sometimes that doesn't work. So what I'll do is place a sandbag or sandbell that's about 10 pounds and place it on someone's belly. And then now that we have a kind of like feedback textile thing on us, gives us a little bit more sensory information. And then with the added weight, it gives you a little bit more stimulation that, oh, I have something and I need to push against it. So now when I ask a patient or client to, every time you inhale, I want you to think of pushing that sandbag or sandbell up towards the ceiling, it works beautifully. Now what this does, creates this kind of domino effect of core function and core stability. When I lift something heavy, I want to create as much intra-abdominal pressure as possible to protect my spine. When I don't do that, I have now shear forces and compressive forces going into my vertebrae, and over time, that's going to fuck up my shit, and I'm going to have low back pain, hip pain, whatever it is. When I properly utilize a diaphragmatic breath, it starts this like waterfall, domino effect, like I said earlier, of this beautifully orchestrated core contraction. When we don't have function of our diaphragm at all, and you're a chest breather, where does that stability come from? Nowhere. So now imagine you're in a gym, trying to push yourself, lifting heavier weights, and honestly, this is why a lot of people end up getting like hernias, low back pain, pulling their whole back out, and crap like that. It all starts with this foundational thing, our breath. And going back to that kind of like stressful scenario that we all live in, and because we're not utilizing our diaphragm, that's heightening our stress response. Because when you look at, again, our bodies are beautifully designed. It's so well designed. When we utilize our diaphragm, it stimulates a cranial nerve called your vagus nerve. What is that responsible for? De-stressing your fucking body. So now imagine you going to your job every single day, sitting at a desk and constantly in that stress response, and you're not utilizing your diaphragm that is naturally designed to help you to chill the fuck out. Hell yes, your body is gonna fucking hate you. Now take that a step further and you repeat that for like 10 years because you're at the stage of your life where you have to work all the fucking time and you're not exercising, and the stress response just gets worse and worse and worse, and now it's affecting your sleep. And now you can't utilize your body's another natural designed thing where it helps you de-stress, and your sleep is broken up or it's not as deep, and you're just in this vicious cycle of shit and you can't get out of it. And no wonder our bodies are just like holding on for dear life to figure out its shit, to move on and live and be happy and healthy, right? And this is where exercise comes in. This is where exercise is such a powerful thing. Like, it fixes everything. Like, it's ridiculous. But we need to learn how to utilize our foundational patterns, like breathing, to actually get the benefit of exercise. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm going to go like balls to the wall every time I go to the gym. And you end up fucking yourself over because your body can only take so much stress. And again, it goes back to this whole diaphragm thing. If this diaphragm is not breathing and moving and stimulating that vagus nerve to help you de-stress from all the stressors of life, then you're kind of fucked. Especially if you're going to the gym doing burpees and med ball slams and ropes and then sprints and all that other shit. Probably not going to go toward your favor of seeing the benefit of exercise. It's probably going to make things worse. As we utilize a full-blown diaphragmatic breath, we can then create stability around our spine. When we do a proper diaphragmatic breath, I like to use the analogy of an unopened Coke can. So if you imagine our torso is kind of like a cylinder. Our diaphragm not only pushes forward when we take a deep breath, it pushes out to the side and also behind us, creating a cylinder effect of low back stability, torso stability, whatever you want to call it. For example, we take an unopened Coke can, place it on the floor. You could step on it and place your entire body weight on it. It does not go anywhere. Why? The can itself, because it's designed like a cylinder, it's a strong, solid foundation. But on top of that, we have liquid inside and also a compressive air, so like the carbonation that's stuck in there. So now when you add load to it, it is a strong little thing that can take, you know, if I step on it, it's 160 pounds, right? Like, that's pretty impressive. Now, let's take a second and open up that Coke can, pour out the liquid just a little bit, like 1/4 of a cup. Now step on it, it's going to crush underneath that weight of mine. That's what happens when we can't effectively utilize our diaphragm, and then we go into a heavy lift like a deadlift. You know, right there and then, you're not going to feel any kind of pain. I always say to patients, like, injury happens when the amount of force that enters the tissue yields. When the tissue's like, holy fuck, that's enough, boom. How an injury happens is repetitive stress to the tissue, and again, it yields to that and goes, fuck, that's it, I'm tearing apart. When we don't utilize our diaphragm properly and create that low back stability that's needed to deadlift off the ground, we're just like slashing away at a vertebrae or tendons or tissues, everything. And eventually we go, holy fuck, why does my back hurt? Take that a step further to more dynamic exercises like running. And I like to use this analogy, like Usain Bolt. He has such a great and like efficient system of being able to contract, relax, contract, relax. The best athletes in the world can contract and relax their muscles faster than anyone else, and that's why they excel. So imagine when Usain Bolt runs his 100-meter sprint, the moment that his foot touches the ground every single time, his entire body creates stability, that stiffness, that intra-abdominal pressure because of his diaphragm. The moment in a running cycle where both feet leave the ground, because you're like literally like floating for a second, his entire body is super relaxed, super, like zero muscle activation. But every time his foot touches the ground and has to like generate power, full body stiffness, right? Contract, relax, contract, relax. His diaphragm is so well tuned and so well developed that he can contract and relax that quickly. If we, again, we're not all going to be like Usain Bolt, but if we can learn how to tap into the power of our diaphragm where we can contract and relax at the right moments, then we can stay pain-free and our performance will increase. A lot of times when I work with an amateur lifter for the first time and, they hit a plateau with their deadlift, they keep saying like every time I go heavier, I end up with like low back soreness, right? Form aside, if I test their breathing, they're not very good at it. A lot of people skip the foundations that they need in order to perform. Going from almost like a rehab and postnatal perspective, a lot of women who come out of pregnancy have a real tough time getting their core strength back because they have this pressure to get back to their like pre-baby weight type of thing. They have all this pressure from society and this made up narrative in their head that for some reason after you give birth right away you need to like look the same way you did. Like, first of all, you literally just pushed a human being out of you. I think you deserve some time to rest and let your body naturally heal. Number two, there are so many like mommy programs and boot camps out there that choose exercises way too advanced for a postnatal mother. Number one, every pregnancy is different. Everyone heals differently. Everyone has different anatomy. Everyone has a different labor process. So throwing in things like burpees and crunches and mountain climbers is probably not the best idea. And again, pelvic floor health is something I always talk about, but a lot of times it's not mentioned in the world of powerlifting and men. But pelvic floor strength is huge for these athletes. If you look up Chris Duffin from Kabuki Strength out in Portland, I remember chatting with him one time and he was saying like the biggest change for him was learning how to utilize his pelvic floor along with his diaphragm in order to perform better at his deadlift and back squat. If you think about creating that intra-abdominal pressure, that compressed air in the cylinder, if your diaphragm's at the top of your rib cage and your pelvic floor is at the bottom, when these two contract properly, they almost kind of come down on each other, creating more intra-abdominal pressure to create more safety around your spine, especially for postnatal women who come back to the gym too early or start doing exercises that are too advanced for them and they have zero intra-abdominal pressure. They're going to get pain in their low back and hip. Like it's not rocket science. If I don't have stability in the lumbar region, it's going to get fucked really, really badly. I always tell my clients, like, you're in charge of your health. I'm just here to kind of guide you in the right direction. This is why I always like ask clients, like, what do you want to see in your program? A lot of times they're just like, you know what, I trust you, just do your thing. But eventually when I keep asking that, they'll eventually tell me, like, you know what, I feel like my left leg needs a little bit more stability. Can we do a little bit more hip stability stuff to improve that? 100%. And this is the other thing too, is like a good coach will not only just prescribe exercise, but also teach their client what they need to know. Like, I can have a full-blown conversation with my clients and about training, and they will understand. They have the ability that if they go to a public gym to train on their own, they can spot bad form. They can spot exercises where they go, I don't know if that's good for you, type of thing, right? So I feel like as a coach, you do more than just provide exercise. You have to give them the tools to succeed in life when they have to do this on their own. I'm very fortunate that a lot of my clients have stuck with me for years. I like to think that it's because of my, amazing personality, but I think it's just because they see the value of what I provide day in, day out, month after month, year after year, right? I'm constantly trying to improve myself, and I'm constantly trying to do that because now I can improve the life of another human being standing in front of me. You know what? This was a good episode. I think I'm going to end it here because I could probably talk for another hour, but my time is trying to run up. This was a lot of fun, but I want to thank you guys for sticking around, listening, watching if you're watching at home. And if you guys have any feedback, questions, thoughts, concerns, let me know. I'm always here to help. You guys are amazing. Honestly, I'm so humbled to see so many people around the world listen to me ramble, support me, buy my fucking shirts and sweaters and shit like that. And to have people like in Saudi Arabia or in India or in the UK listening to my show, like, so fucking cool. You guys are the best. So hit the show notes, add me on Facebook, add me on Instagram. I'll say what's up and ask you what I can do to help. And thank you guys. Until next time.